In a quaint little farming community containing sprawling fields of crops, lived a 29-year-old man named Jake. Jake was a hard-working farmer, tending his crops with unwavering dedication, especially the vast cornfield that stretched as far as the eye could see. His days were filled with the rhythmic rustling of the wind through the tall stalks. His life was pretty good overall, albeit a bit lonely. Beyond the farm, a dense forest loomed, harboring secrets that sparked the imagination of the villagers. Legend spoke of a hidden grove within, a place veiled in mystery and guarded by enchantment. One day, in the early days of a hot summer, as Jake rested under the shade of an ancient oak tree at the edge of the farm, he overheard whispers carried by the wind. The voices beckoned him toward the heart of the forest, and his adventurous spirit could not resist the call. Guided by the melodic murmurs, Jake ventured into the woods, weaving through the towering trees until he stumbled upon the hidden grove. To his amazement, the grove was alive with vibrant hues, and at its center stood a human-sized fairy, with wings that sparkled in the sunlight. She was adorned in a skimpy outfit that left little to the imagination. "Hey there, Jake. I've been waiting for you," she greeted with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, her voice musical and light. "You finally found the entrance to my secret hideaway. I'm Twinkle, the new guardian of this grove." Her wings fluttered with excitement. Jake blinked and rubbed his eyes in disbelief, half expecting to wake up from a dream. Twinkle? Guardian? Am I dreaming?" Jake stammered. Twinkle giggled, her laughter echoing through the grove. "No dream, Jake. Just fate bringing us together. You see, I've been watching you working hard and diligently, tending to your crops, and I thought, now, there's a farmer who could use a bit of magic in his life." Jake scratched his head, still trying to comprehend the situation. "Magic, huh? Well, this is a first. What kind of magic are we talking about?" Twinkle fluttered her wings and winked. "The best kind, the kind that turns everyday moments into extraordinary adventures. And lucky for you, I've got a surplus of laughter and whimsy." With a mischievous grin, Jake replied, "Well, I could use a good laugh. Farming can be pretty serious business, you know. Although I certainly wasn't expecting anything like this. I thought the biggest surprise in my day would be finding a two-headed chicken in the coop." Twinkle giggled in response, and gave him a sweet smile. As they strolled through the grove together, Twinkle regaled Jake with tales of the magical creatures that inhabited the grove, and Jake shared stories of his adventures in the fields. Ironically, it turned out that despite having wings, Twinkle couldn't fly. Her fairy wings were not strong or big enough to allow her to fly at all. Evolution had not worked out well for her in this regard, even for a magical being. At one point as they conversed, Jake commented on Twinkle's unconventional attire. He raised an eyebrow and said, "You know, fairies in my storybooks wore a bit more clothing." Twinkle laughed, "Oh, Jake, in the fairy fashion world, less is more. Besides, I've got these gorgeous wings to show off." Jake chuckled, "Wings that can't even get you off the ground. What good are they?" Twinkle pouted, "Hey now, they may not make me fly, but they sure make a statement. Plus, I'm not one to follow the crowd." Jake, growing fond of Twinkle's spirited personality, joined in the banter, "Well, I can't argue with that. You certainly stand out around here." As the minutes turned into hours, Jake found himself captivated by Twinkle's stories of the mystical world hidden within the grove, as well as Twinkle's personality, charm, playfulness, and mischievousness. They laughed together, sharing tales of their lives, and a bond began to form between the unlikely pair. Over the next several days, Jake and Twinkle spent a lot of time together. They discovered a shared love for humor and adventure between them. The cornfield transformed into a stage for their banter, with Twinkle's witty remarks echoing amidst the swaying crops. Their bond soon deepened into an unlikely yet charming friendship, marked by amusing banter and shared laughter. "Flying may be off the table, but I make up for it in charm," Twinkle winked, her short dress becoming a constant source of amusement for Jake. Additionally, her inability to fly became another source of amusement for both of them. They often cracked jokes about it, and Twinkle would sometimes even jokingly make failed attempts to fly, knowing she would fail, while comically over-exaggerating her strain and mock disappointment, which made them both laugh hard. Although, on one such joking failed flying attempt, she ended up foolishly stumbling and falling onto her butt, which made the situation even more hilarious for Jake, and for Twinkle as well after her initial pout. One time, the two of them even went skinny dipping together in an enchanted stream in the secret grove where they first met, enjoying cool sensation of the water against their skin in contrast to the summer heat. Twinkle couldn't resist the urge to playfully splash water at Jake, who retaliated, scooping water with his hands and sending it cascading towards Twinkle. Their playful water fight continued, echoing through the grove. At one point, Twinkle even conjured a magical whirlpool and sent it spinning around Jake. The fairy and the farmer, in their carefree delight, reveled in the simplicity of the moment. Twinkle's useless wings fluttered, and Jake's laughter harmonized with the gentle babble of the enchanted stream. "Who knew skinny dipping could be so much fun?" said Jake, a wide grin on his face. Twinkle giggled, her eyes sparkling. "Everything is more fun when you have a friend to share it with." They continued to spend a lot of time together, whether it be exploring the woods and the magical grove, or hanging out on his farm. Sometimes Twinkle even helped Jake with his work on the farm. One time, in the chicken coop, Twinkle joked to Jake about magically giving one of the chickens a second head, to give him that two-headed chicken he joked about when they first met. Jake laughed and jokingly declined. Besides, that was something she couldn't do anyway. Her magic powers did have several limits, and this was one of them. However, she could communicate with the chickens, as well as all other creatures. She would communicate with chickens and horses on the farm, as well as creatures in the woods, and more. She even communicated with Jake's dog at times, and Jake couldn't help but laugh at some of the things that she relayed to him from his dog about what his dog thought about him. As Jake and Twinkle continued spending time together over the days, they discovered a mystery unfolding in the neighboring farm. They noticed strange activities during the moonlit nights, and they discovered that there was an illegal drug ring operating there. The once peaceful fields became a hub of hushed conversations and suspicious movements. Jake and Twinkle decided to sneak onto the neighboring farm and eavesdrop on the illegal operation during the nights, armed with their humor and camaraderie. One evening, concealed behind the tall corn stalks, Jake and Twinkle huddled close, listening to the low murmurs of the criminals. Twinkle whispered, "This is serious business, Jake. We need to be careful and clever." "Don't worry, Twinkle. No one suspects a farmer and his fairy sidekick," Jake replied with a mischievous grin, Twinkle's mischievousness having somewhat rubbed off on him by now. The duo overheard plans, secret codes, and the names of those involved. Their discovery became a puzzle, and they pieced it together like detectives. The humorous banter, yet silent, between Jake and Twinkle lightened the tension, making their covert mission strangely enjoyable. One night, while trespassing and eavesdropping, Jake found himself in a tight spot, quite literally. At one point, in order to avoid being seen, they suddenly had to very hastily duck and hide and press up against each other, resulting in Jake's head being squeezed between Twinkle's thighs. They found this amusing despite the tense situation, and they stifled their laughter as they struggled to maintain their composure. Thankfully, the criminals continued their activities, oblivious to the duo's presence. Amidst the tension, Twinkle, unable to contain her mischievous nature, whispered a witty remark to Jake. Suppressing their laughter once again, they strained to catch every word spoken by the nefarious individuals. Finally, having gathered enough evidence, Jake and Twinkle concocted a plan to expose the drug ring, and they went to the authorities. The sheriff, understandably, was rather taken aback by a fairy walking into the station, and in very skimpy attire, no less. "Yes, I was in disbelief when I first met her myself, Sheriff," said Jake, but he listened to them as they explained what they discovered. Jake, always quick-witted, suggested a diversion involving a horde of fireflies and a strategically placed scarecrow. As the night of reckoning arrived, Jake and Twinkle executed their plan flawlessly. The criminals, lured by the mesmerizing display of fireflies, were caught off guard. The scarecrow, dressed in a makeshift uniform, led them away from their illicit activities. Meanwhile, Jake and Twinkle guided the town sheriff and his deputies onto the farm where the criminals operated. The sheriff, amazed by the unlikely duo, watched as Jake and Twinkle unveiled the shocking truth. With a mix of humor and stern determination, Jake and Twinkle exposed the illegal drug ring to the authorities. The criminals, bewildered by the sudden turn of events, were swiftly apprehended. The townsfolk, awakened by the commotion, gathered to witness the arrest. The once crime-ridden grove became the stage for justice, bathed in the soft glow of the fireflies. The sheriff congratulated Jake and Twinkle, acknowledging their bravery and resourcefulness. In the end, the criminals were taken away in shackles, and the town rejoiced in the triumph of good over evil. Jake and Twinkle, their friendship forever etched in the town's history, stood together as symbols of courage and resilience. And so, under the moonlit sky, the unlikely heroes of the cornfield celebrated their victory, knowing that the whispers in the cornfield had been replaced by laughter and the sweet melodies of a community united against the forces of darkness.